Hey, everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Today's guest, if you've ever competed, you've probably used this man's product at one time or another, if not every show you ever did. Please welcome the president of Protan, Stacy Kaufman. How are you, Stacy?
Awesome, Ron. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for the nice introduction.
Yeah, so that company started in 1987. We'll talk about how it started and everything, but I distinctly remember I began competing in early 89, spring of 89. And the first show I went to, I was so clueless. I'd never been to a show before. And the first thing I noticed when everyone was backstage, I said, why is everybody so tan? Everyone's like dark brown. And I'm sitting there all pasty and I could smell it. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're putting something on that makes them look, that's not a real tan. And then
definitely a naive bodybuilder back in the days, Ross.
There was no internet.
Hey, there wasn't the information as readily available as it was today for people to know. So, 80, like you said, 89 was a long time ago. I just want to correct you. We actually started the company in 84.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was 3 years involved in the business before I invented Protan. We had oils and we had soap for acne. We did have a bronzer, but we didn't invent Protan until 3 years later. So we were 4 years in the business before the tanning was, and everybody was using another brand called Dioderm back in the days.
Yeah, I think, now when did that start? Because I don't remember bodybuilders having any artificial painted on color until maybe the 80s. So Dioderm was when?
So the history about Dioderm is a product that was designed for a skin disorder called vitiligo, which are white patches. You mostly see them on African or darker skin people. You see the white patches more, so it's really prevalent. But that's what it was designed for people that had disfigurement. So it was sold in the dermatologist's office or at a pharmacy. And bodybuilders, like anything, stumbled onto it and started using it, and that became the product. And we actually formulated the Protan based off of the Dioderm product. I mean, I don't claim to say that I invented the art of tanning for the shows and all that, but this was the first product that was a liquid that people use for a skin disorder. We happen to, stumble onto that through some bodybuilders, and then we duplicated it to our own capacity.
Yeah, you definitely improved on it quite a bit, because Dioderm was before my time, but I talked to the older guys and they said a lot of times they would look green on stage from Dioderm.
Well, the interesting part, and I know we jumped right into this, but the interesting part about the Dioderm product is because it was sold in a physician's office, the idea was you put it on and you rinse it off. It was green. And by the way, the original Protan was green. Green is the best color when you rinse it off. It's not the best color when you leave it on, unless you're the whole. But when it's rinsed off, the actual color of green, the stain, stains your tan a little bit of a yellowish color. So it was the closest thing to using. Now, fast forward to today, they've come up with violets and blacks and other colors that help give that instant color. But the green was what was used, and so was Protan back in the days. It took us, I would say, 3 years before we developed the brown formula we've known to use today. And the brown not being a color, we had to work hard in the lab for stability and color, and we've done that ever since. So originally it was green, to answer the question.
Okay, but take me back to 1984. What possessed you to say, you know what, I think I'm going to start a company for stage color, artificial color that bodybuilders, and back then actually it was just bodybuilding. We didn't have a million divisions. So where'd the idea come from?
So interesting enough, I went out of high school. I went away to South Missouri State on a football scholarship. I was an offensive guard, and I went away to school for a short period of time. And I didn't think school was for me. I had my own little invention. When I was in school, it was like a spittoon. It wasn't even a tanning business. But I walked out of college thinking I'm going to start this business. And I came home from Missouri, and my father said, "What are you doing?" Like, I don't like college. He goes, "Well, you're going to college." So fast forward, I wound up enrolling in school. I tried to walk on to the University of Miami to play football back in 1983, which would have been a good year, national champions. Yeah. But I started my suntan oil business, and my first brand was Suntan U. So I actually started selling suntan oil on the beach. Had no experience. I took a job at a cosmetic factory as a warehouse worker, and I worked at the factory cleaning up, and I learned how to make batches, print bottles, worked in the lab with a chemist, and I would happen to be at a gym, Olympia gym. That's actually around the name Olympia gym. That's what it's called. Oh, wow. Pete owned the gym. And I went to a show and I saw people putting baby oil on. I'm like, wait a minute, I can make an oil that's better than baby oil, because the baby oil was so shiny that the lights would reflect and it creates blind spots. So when we made a natural vegetable, we had original Muscular PPO, professional posing. We did one for men, one for ladies, and the fragrance was different. But that was a natural oil that started everything before the Protan was invented. And it was designed for the stage lights to absorb the light and reflect off your true muscular, as opposed to creating blind spots like a baby oil would do, that super shininess. So that was the start of it back then. And, in the days, there was a lot of acne problems. There was a lot of experimentation going on with athletes. So if you recall, there was a lot of jacked up skin back in those days.
Yeah.
And we made a product that was really cool. We used Australian tea tree oil, which of course has become very famous. But I was one of the first people to bring that in on the cosmetic side for anti-acne. It's a very good astringent. So we had a soap for acne, and we had a stretch mark cream. We had all the things that a bodybuilder needed, but we didn't have the paint on Protan at the time. So it's kind of interesting. We had a sheen, Muscle Sheen was the first one of our first products. And I want to clarify, we were not, I say this, we were the first tanning company, but there was actually a guy out of Texas that actually had body shining products when I came in the business. There was actually another guy that had some sheens. That was it, nothing else. But it was interesting that there was someone else prior before me out of Texas, a young guy actually. So there's a little bit more history than people know, but.
Yeah. So when did, because, like I said, by the time I started competing, Protan was everywhere. So it must have happened pretty quickly.
Well, late 84, I started the company. In 87, middle of 87, I introduced Protan. So it was basically 2.5 years. And like I said, we found this product called Dioderm. We looked at it. We took it in our lab. I had a great chemist back in the days. His name was Mr. Bill. I know. For those of you who watch Saturday Night Live, but
I know who that is.
Exactly, you know who it is. And he really looked like Mr. Bill. He had purple hair. It was crazy. But he was an old chemist from the old days of L'Oreal. So he was an older guy, and he invented Protan with me. We worked in the lab and painted it, and we developed it, and made it. And like I say, we've been doing it. Thank God, touch wood, for so many years, and globally. And it's been a proven formula that we modified a little bit on other products to help it, but the Protan is still the original formula from its original invention. Wow. It's like the Coca-Cola formula. No reason to change it.
Yeah. Who were some of the first pro bodybuilders to really endorse and embrace Protan? Do you remember? You must remember.
Oh yeah. Well, my first was Rich Gaspari.
Oh, okay.
Richie was my first. I've done other interviews, and we talked about the long story about Richie, but Richie is my first. I hunted him down in New Jersey and went to his house and basically knocked on his door, and he became my first athlete. And then I worked with so many guys. Back in the days, there was, I had Labrada, I had Robbie Robinson, I had Gary Stridham, I had, I'm looking at my walls, I had Lee Haney back in the day, and he was competing, and, he was using oils, and looking at all that Stridham, Barry DeMay, a lot of Julia Bergman, Bob Paris, all the old legacy. Of course, Sean Ray was one of our great athletes too. So we had most of the old legacy guys, and that's what built Protan, is those guys would travel the world at the different shows, and they pull out of their bag, and that's really what catapulted the brand to be a global brand. Is the athletes took it around with them and shared it with the athletes, with people. And it worked out really well. Yeah, but those are the original athletes we had. I can't remember. Dorian Yates at the time, but I don't think he used our tanning when he was winning Olympia. But there's a lot of athletes come and gone. One way or the other, they've all used our products. Not everyone, has used them for the Olympia, but I would like to say most Olympians have used Protan.
Yeah, and we'll get to other things, but let's talk about the current Mr. Olympia, Big Ramy. Because obviously that would be your number one athlete right now. He's the number one bodybuilder in the world.
Yes.
How did Ramy become associated with Protan? How long has he been using it? How long have you known Ramy?
I'm glad that you asked. So I've known Ramy since he's been competing, of course, at the Olympia. We see him. I've seen him at other shows. He's always been a nice person. He didn't speak too much English. Of course, now he speaks much better, so he can actually communicate. The way it worked is, for the past few years, he was with another company. And, for whatever reason, his coach and trainers loved this other company back in the days, and, they never got out of it. But each Olympia, last year, we'll talk, but probably the past two Olympias, his tan was terrible. So we always were fixing him. We always wiped that off, tell him to shower and tan him. And then, he looked good. Finally, this year, he said, Stacy, I am 100% Protan, boom. And, after the previous year, I would say 2019, where we fixed him for the night show, he was so embarrassed about how bad his color looked. When we fixed him, he's like, wait a minute, I need to do this for the future. This year, he was all in. And, after doing that, once you get an athlete of that caliber, it doesn't matter, an amateur, it could be pro, but we're talking Ramy now. Yeah. He loves us. Our goal is to great care of him. He will never step on stage without Protan ever again. That's basically, and that's what happens with us. And we're very, I keep touching wood, but when you become a user, you never stop. The product works every time, and it really will give you the best appearance you have on stage. And that's the key to us.
Yeah, because anybody who's either competed or who's judged, or even the spectators who have a good eye for it, know color is so critical. I've seen many people over the years, amateurs and pros, lose competitions because their color was horrible. They were either blotchy or green, or it's running all over the place, and the physique is just not displayed properly. And other companies have kind of come and gone. I won't name them by name, but some of them are just creams you rub on. And there was one Dream Tan that you had to go like this, and it destroyed everything it came in contact with forever. just, it got banned from, I think, most venues.
Federation. But it's funny you mentioned the Dream Tin, and honestly, we have a product called One Coat, which is very similar, not with, it doesn't have metallic, but we had to do that for the global business because in these other countries that can't afford things, it's quick, it's easy, it's effective, and that was the value of it. We're not everybody lives, let's say, in America or in the Europe where there's access to these products. Some of these countries where there's shows. The population is relatively poorer too, and bodybuilding is very expensive, so they're unlimited. So they'll use it if they can. So that's where the creams came in, but they got banned, like you said, because they didn't dry. We had a product in the early '90s that was called Ultra Bronze. It was the same thing. It never dried, and we stopped it. But it was way before that. It was an instant bronzer, and it was designed for photo shoots. So you go in the pool, you put it on, you could jump in the pool, it wouldn't run off, but then it would wipe right off. So I don't want to bore your readers or your listeners nowadays with the cosmetic, but there's oil-based and water-based. Ideally, Protan's water-based because oil goes over it, posing oil, posing sheen.
Yeah.
The other products we talked about, whether it's instant grease, is an oil-based. There's nothing that can go over it, so it never sets. Yeah. So that's why those products were so messy. You touched anything and they rubbed off. It's brutal.
Not for nothing, but as a competitor, the one thing I always noticed, and I saw this with other people on stage too, is because Protan would soak into the skin, and you could wash off the excess and put the oil on. Yep. It didn't obscure any detail at all. If you were shredded and dry, you looked perfect. Whereas these other things that go on top of the skin, even if it's just a filmy layer, that's still something that's in between the definition and what you're seeing.
Well, you've got the hardcore bodybuilding market, and they get it. They understand paper thin skin. Once you put anything over it, you cover that barrier of vascularity, whether you recognize it or not. Now, luckily, all the products we make absorb into the skin. They reemerge, like you said, as you're posing. So they highlight you better as you get warmer, which is really nice. But yeah, look, the cosmetic business, and that's what this is. We've now become a brand of company that was early to use, couple of days preparation, the people that want to do on the stage. But let's go back to Big Ramy, because I made it sound like it was an easy transition. It was not an easy transition. Okay, I think I want to remember his trainer, Abdul, I think that's his name. Very, very interesting trainers. I mean, Ramy had a group of guys, and prior to being independent like he was last year, for the few years prior, he was with another gym. He was part of another gym, and they had their own management team, and it was kind of a challenge. I mean, they'd be yelling at you back at the Olympia, yelling like, get him darker, do this. We're like, whoa, you train him on the body, we'll do the tanning. He's like blacker than black, okay? He's way too dark. Get in the shower, take the shit off. And that's what we run into, is that we're constantly, so with Ramy, it was the same thing. Get him dark. I'm like, guys, he looks terrible. You can get him dark with our competitors' brands, because when he goes on stage, he looks like, bad. But with our brand, this is how we do it. And we've often had to tell coaches, hey, go back, let us do our job, respectfully you, and let us do it. And we pulled it off because coaches trust us. I mean, the world is full of coaches. So with Ramy, it took his first round of coaches to convince them. And then his new round knew of us. And he's like, you know what? I'm 100% committed. So it was a challenge with him because he was a friend. He was a nice guy. And I'm like, you will not do good. You look like shit. I would tell him that. I go, Ramy, you understand this word shit? He goes, yeah. I go, your tan looks like shit. He's like, really? I go, I'm telling you, I don't want to upset you. We need to fix it. Go see my girls. And we would fix him. Look, part of our role as Olympia, Mr. Olympia sponsor, is 17 years this year as the official tanning, and we take that, with pride. We love it. We're proud of that. And we really, really recognize our big responsibility for these athletes. So for us to pull off that every athlete's looked their very best, boy, what an accomplishment it is. So we will never jeopardize that. And this year was just a travesty of years. And they pulled off a great Olympia, I thought. The athletes looked phenomenal. And I think we did our best job ever, Tan. I thought every athlete, and we did almost all of them, they just looked gorgeous. Now, the stage was beautiful. The lighting was perfect. It was set up for TV. So we had all the elements to really let us shine at that show as well. So it was a win for our brand. It was a win for the Olympia. And of course, we got Big Ramy. And plus, we got a bunch of other athletes from that show. So many athletes were using our competitors' products. And by the way, I have nothing against my competitors. The world is full of things. We just pride to be the best. And we feel we have the best team and the best employees that do the job. And most of our employees are female athletes. So they really get it. They're really passionate and they're empathetic towards everybody. But this Olympia, we did a great job. And getting Ramy was like, okay, this is great. I said, okay, and we love him. He's funny. He looks great. He'll do anything for us. So, kudos to us as a company to get a Mr. Olympia. We've had greats like Dexter Jackson since day one. I mean, I didn't mention him earlier, but he was also my first athletes. You think, why is Dexter the tan? Well, we tan everybody. Let's face it,
Well, yeah, you know what? Let's touch on that just for a second,
Yeah.
because I think it's automatically assumed if an athlete's African American, they don't need to do anything at all. No sun tanning, no artificial color, nothing. But unless that's only true for a very certain specific skin shade, for everyone else,
Absolutely.
you do need some kind of artificial enhancement to the color to look your best under those bright lights.
Absolutely. And it's exactly what it's bright lights, bright stage lights wash you out. So imagine, you're a darker skinned person. It doesn't matter. You can be African American, you can be from the islands, wherever you might be. And you go, wow, I'm dark. When you get on stage, that darkness becomes almost grayish.
Yeah.
So you have to do it. It's just like getting a suntan. That suntan gets you that rosy redness to your skin that gets you that richness. So all the athletes now recognize, hey, even though I'm a darker person, I'm definitely putting at least one coat on. I mean, we got a big thing with the physique guys because a lot of them are darker,
Right.
and they'll tan. We got them in a tanning bed, but they'll use our product called Quick Bronze, which is a bronzing cream with a little color. I don't want to use it as, I don't want to put it as in the same category as our one coat, which is a heavy makeup, or that other product we talked about. I won't put it on this show because it's about Protan, but it is a lighter, it's our muscle sheen with a little touch of color. And if you're African American, it's great for the physique guys. They all use it. It's the right sheen, there's a little bit of richness, and then you just wipe it off. So, they use Protan, but they also use some of our other products like our Quick Bronze on those aspects. But you're right. We have to do a better job educating all the athletes, Ron. It's our brand that's leading the way, and it's our role to educate the new athletes that are coming in. We talked earlier about the old people. I'm the old person. I'll be 57 this year. So, we have to focus on the younger audience because they're new and we can't assume they know how to tan or they know what to do. And some people do show up, like you said, fair skin. Like, really? You show up to the show without a tan? Like, I didn't know. Like, well, you're training in the gym. Somebody had to tell you.
Nobody. Yeah.
I know. It's crazy. He probably his workout partners, his competitors didn't want to let him know. You look great. Just show up white. Don't worry about it.
It's another thing is a lot of white guys, they can tan, but they don't get brown. They get sort of like a reddish brown. It doesn't look right under the lights. So even for them, and, I honestly don't think anybody can tan to the point where you would look tan under those lights. Those lights are brutally harsh. They're so bright.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you is, like when I started, it was just people backstage with their own bottle and this and that. There was no Protan staff backstage. And now you go to shows and, Protan's the official sponsor, and there'd be a whole giant room at the hotel with these tents and the air gun, the spray tan guns going. How did it go from, people just having their own tan in their own room with somebody painting them to this like factory setting where you were spraying sometimes at the national shows? Geez, like 1,000 or more athletes over the course of a couple of days.
Yeah, no, well, painfully we do this. Look, we become a part of the show as opposed to just being a vendor at a show. We're part of the actual presentation. I mean, our TANs are responsible for making sure that the show runs quickly and efficiently. We're actually expediting back there. So we've gone from not only tanning, but part of the whole show, making sure that each group of athletes is on stage at the correct time. That's very important. Often at these shows, promoters are so busy, they need people to help. So we've become not only the tanning, but we're also part expediting. I think that's been the cornerstone of our strength with the bigger shows like the Olympia. Our team, like Protan Chicas, know what to do. We've done it. So we're basically in the background running alongside of the promoters. And that's what we do now. So you ask about how we transition. So it took me a while before I wanted to transition. I'll tell you why. When I first spray tan somebody, it was me with an airbrush gun. Now, if people don't know, now you see these HVLP big guns. Well, back in the days, we had a little gun. It was like a little airbrush. You put your finger on it, and it's like spray painting. So you've seen those. And I was tanning people, and I went home to my wife at the time. I said, I can't do this. She goes, what? I go, I can't sit here and spray men and women that close to this thing. I feel like I'm cheating. And I called Jim Manny. I said, Jim, we can't do this at the shows. Jim Manny, of course, president of the NPC. I know talking pro, but this NPC. And I said, Jim, this is really bad. I said, I don't want to do this again. We should not allow this. I felt because one, I was there by myself, and not that anybody was said anything, but I felt very uncomfortable. Yeah. I put myself in a very, as owner of a business, an awkward position, and I'm not shy or prude, but it was just people bending over. And so fast forward. So for many years, I didn't want to do it. I was like, anti this. And then when we decided to do it, I said, if I'm going to do it, we're going to do it right. We're only going to use female spray tanners. Okay. So I had to recruit female. Why is that? Well, I know if my wife or my girlfriend, well, I don't have both, let's just be clear, but was tanning at a show, I wouldn't want another man sitting there looking at her naked. So we said, we're going to have only women. So that was the first thing we did. And then with the women we had, we were fortunate enough to recruit from within the industry. So most of our spray tanners around the world, we have like 300 girls that work for us.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a little over 40 in the US, but over the world with all of our teams, over 300 women work. There are some guys do serve a role as management. They'll do some oiling backstage, but not tanning unless it's in a foreign country where they only allow men to tan, because that happens. Yeah. But for the most part, it was that method that we took, that quality of life that we gave to these athletes. Look, you're going to be here. It's in a humane. We'll give you a big tent. It's private, and that was big. Everybody, these Bibles want to just show off everything. But you know what? When you're spray tanning, you not really want to show off everything. It's not in the most flattering positions for a woman or a man. So I owe it to the girls that I've hired, the Protan Chicas, to really get with the programs and educate and me being there managing them. But they've done a great job. I mean, they connect with the athletes better than I do. I'm not a competitive athlete, so I don't have that real feeling. The girls that we use, they're so close to everybody that it's brilliant for us, actually. It really works out well.
Yeah, like I said before we started recording, the one, I don't know if she's the actual leader of your crew.
The leader of the troop?
Carla Salati, IFBB Pro from Massachusetts.
Yep.
I see her at every show. She's on point. Seems like she's like managing everybody, keeping everybody in line, making sure everything gets done. And
she's the OG, Ron. She's the OG.
Shout out to Carla.
Thanks. No, she'll love you for that. Look, Carla's been with me one of the longest. I mean, she really has been a true Protan Chica girl. She's the OG. Everybody goes to her. But, as we've grown and always as we've aged, we've had to incorporate other managers in different territories. So we have a great group of women that really own this part of their job. And, we couldn't do without them. We just did the Phil Heath show in Texas. I mean, I think we sprayed 90% of the entire show, wow, which is phenomenal for us. And we did and everybody looked phenomenal, and their lighting was amazing. And I want to get back to the lighting issue, but it's the girls that I have, the Protan Chica, and the consistency in our products. We work very hard at making sure our products are consistent with what the market is, and meaning that we test the formulas all the time because we can, and then we improve formulas for its next phase. Like we have our new top coat. So people that want to get darker, we develop another product for them. So we have staged a couple extra products. It's kind of like a 1-2 system now, if you choose. I'm still an old school guy. I think Protan is good enough and dark enough, but if people want to be darker, we make them darker.
Yeah. I want to throw out an endorsement to anyone who's competing. And if Protan offers spray tanning at the show, do it, because I competed for 24 years. I did over 30 shows, and only the very last show did I finally buckle down and said, you know what, I'll just do the color, because I'll do the color at the show, because my wife wasn't going to be there. I said, they have it at the hotel, I'll do it. And I said, wow, why didn't I do this all along? Because it's perfectly even. There's no blotches, there's no streaks, and you end up looking perfect. And I think they did one coat the night before the show. Yep. You can come back and do a touch up the morning of the show, and it's flawless. And man,
it's funny you say that. It is flawless. However, you and I know, and what I know from watching him, my son competed once. So I got the experience of a bodybuilder living with him. He was kind of brain dead the last 2 weeks and the last week. So I used to want people to do the tan themselves, like, wow. But then I realized you're really tired. Like, you got no energy to do your tan. After seeing my son, like I witnessed, he was living with me, like, wow, I got to do everything for you. I mean, he doesn't even come to work. I'm like, how do people work and take a week off? But many people, do. I mean, you look at the athletes in Olympia that's in the Army. The big guy, my brain is running.
Cedric.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's in the military and he's competing, so kudos to him. Cedric is phenomenal. But the question, the thing I was going to tell you is we still sell a tremendous amount of DIY kits. There are still athletes that want to do it themselves. They want to do it in the comfort of their home. They want to come to show ready, and then backstage you oil them up. So we still promote a lot of do-it-yourself, especially if we're not at the show. If Protan's not at the show, by all means, do it yourself. It's flawless. That's what we've been doing for years, and everybody loves it. Most of our bikini pros do it themselves. Ironically, they all, Wow. So a lot of shows we're Protan on the professional side for females, because we don't, we're not a support at this time of the Wings of Strength group. I mean, we support them through other shows, but there's another group that does with them. So the athletes that compete in there do it themselves, unless if we go to that show to help the athletes, that's one thing. But we never go to shows that we're not involved in, unless it's for our athletes. And if it's for the athletes, it's complimentary, and we'll do 20 or 30 pros at a show. And that's what we do. We really support the athletes a lot. We've done a great job at investing now in the pros so that they always have Protan. It's not fair for them if we're not at a show. And there are trusted athletes, so they do it themselves or we do it. But the DIYs are still popular.
Yeah, when you have it at the shows like that, it sort of evens the playing field in terms of the color, because like I said, I've seen some people where they looked phenomenal, but they just messed up their tan badly. They weren't dark enough, or they had blotches or streaks, and it's so distracting. Whereas if you go to a pro show and Protan's a sponsor, unless the athlete for whatever reason didn't take advantage of it,
Yeah, you see those.
they're all going to look perfect on stage color wise. You know, you don't control everything else, but
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
the one thing that you're definitely helping them out and making sure they're not going to be judged harshly on.
Well, you know what? Thank you. And I'm very proud of the colors that wind up on the athletes. It's based on the actual skin type. So not everybody looks the same. Now, when we do shows in Asian countries, and we've done shows in China, where their base tan is very similar. When they're on stage, they all look identical. I mean, they really do. Like Protan looks identical on every athlete in Asia because their skin. Now when you're here in our country, other countries where the skin tones are different, you're not going to get that look. But there's one issue where everybody's skin tone is the basic, and they all look the same. When it's one of the most beautiful things I've seen because they all look amazing. Yeah. So it's fun. But you said something very interesting that the colors vary based on each person. Earlier you mentioned about a light person. Yeah. Absolutely, they're very fair-skinned athletes. But recognize the judges at the pro level, they will comment about your tanning and they will make sure you fix it. They don't really mark down. I know what everybody says, but judges say they don't mark down. They give the athletes a warning. Now, if it's really a shit show, you know, you're going to be in bad shape. And that's happened to some pros at the Olympia. There's been some Olympia athletes that come out terrible. They're like, if you don't fix your tan, you're not fishing in the top 10. And I've been waiting. The guys will come to us, help me. Like, no problem, shower, and we'll fix them. So it gets to the extreme of the pros. In the amateur level, I think that the judges are a little bit more lenient, you know, with that. They're critical of it, but it's not the priority. I would like it to be more of a priority that people would take more emphasis. But I'm finding that athletes nowadays are really getting better at the tanning. They're wanting it. They're more willing to it. And even with the COVID, we put in all the COVID rules and placements and travel and mask, and everybody got their own sponge. And I'll tell you, we've been very, fortunate that the athletes have done well with us. They listen, they wear their mask in our room, and everybody's happy. So, thank God we're okay considering. And I'm happy to be that way as a company and for all employees too. They're all being safe and they all have protocols, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we provide a service that is not only great service and great tan, but also safe during this time.
Cool. So like I said, when Protan started, there was only one division for men and one for women. Bodybuilding, that was it.
That was it.
We've seen 9 more divisions added since then. 9. We have now 11. Wow, that's a lot. How has that changed the game as far as the color goes? But everyone uses it, but do they all use it the same way?
So I try to establish some color levels for different groups. So we know that we feel that physique and bikini should be a natural tan. Now, I'm an outsider, not a judge, but we know it's going to highlight the muscularity the way it's supposed to be with a natural looking tan. So when I see bikini or physique, they look like they came off the beach. Okay. You get more into the figure and the fitness, it can be a little darker, not so much, but a little darker. And then when you get to the men's bodybuilding and even the classic, their skin is so dry that they need to just get dark because it's so dry. And for some reason, they look good super dark. Yeah. Like, but the average person, a bikini athlete, a female, should not be super black. If she's a white person, if you're black, you're black. But to go from white to look like a different race is just not good on stage. And you can see that. So, the colors for me should be as natural as can be, but we're so affected by stage lights. You made a very important thing. The stage lights for photos can be detrimental. I've seen some great tans in person, and I look at the photos, I'm like, what do we do? They look so dark or they're green, but they weren't. It's the lighting on the stage. So unfortunately, we can't control lighting at all the venues. Ideally, there's a certain light temperature that should be, and the bright amber glows, but only at the pro shows, they really adjust that lighting from what I see. And when there's a photographer that's really, hired for the show, they'll go there, they'll test all the lights. Like I've seen JM, and I've seen other photographers from MD, like check the lighting. That's the critical part. The lighting's got to be right on to where the tan really looks the way it is. Because I can have a beautiful tan and you want that light and it could have a blue hue to it. And you've seen that, you're like, what happened? Now the judges won't see that, but the people looking at the pictures will. So it's a little confusing.
I think it should be said that what really changed that is for many, many years, there was a plain black backdrop, or it was just a static backdrop of some sort of curtains or whatever. Couple banners, and now, like we saw at the Olympia, there were TV screens the size of a football field.
Oh yeah,
with all kinds of crazy lights and colors.
Yeah,
and cameras they're trying to adjust around that, so the color temperatures change. There's really no way to control it.
Yeah, and for me, so I spend my weekends, if I'm not at a show, on my phone, Instagram, looking at what we're posting to see how my teams are doing. And I can tell you, I'll text girls while they're working. Listen, they look dark. What's the lighting like? I mean, I'm commenting. That's what I do on Friday and Saturdays, not Saturday nights, but Friday, mostly Friday nights. I'm on my thing with my teams and looking at the visuals and posting pictures. So a lot is with the lighting. We will guarantee the best tan, but sometimes the lighting is just bad. We tell athletes our role now is to look at the lighting and then adjust the tans accordingly. If there's no lights on stage, we're not going to make people that dark. But we have to let the athlete know that. Say, guys, there is no lights. If you walk out there yourself, you'll see the lights aren't bright. So we don't want to make you too dark because then you won't be seen. So we're running into that a little bit. As a professional company, our goal is to always be perfect, so to speak. That's not easy to do. Yeah. And there are some obstacles about it. So yes, how do you do it? Well, we got to pay attention. The girls got to look at the lights and make sure that if it's too bright, go a little darker. If it's too dark, make sure they're lighter. It's interesting. There's a little bit of tweaking involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's I think any competitor that's used your product will sort of know what I'm talking about here. When there's a line in the movie Apocalypse Now where they say, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. But for bodybuilders, I always love the smell of Protan at the very end because to me, that was like, okay, now the show, it's almost time to get on stage. Yeah. When I felt that smell, and then when you see that first coat and you look in the mirror and you finally get that color and the cuts are coming out deeper and clearer. It was just a wonderful thing. To me, that was always almost the best part because it was the pinnacle.
The finish. Yeah, no, and there's so many athletes, Ron, like you, that will tell me the same thing. I just love the smell of Protan, or I love the smell of hot stuff backstage. I'm like, wow, that's but it's funny. But you're right. I'm very proud of the fact that we are the smell of bodybuilding.
Did you make hot stuff?
We make hot stuff as one of our products.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, hot stuff is a vasodilator that brings your vascularity out on stage. Not that many people use it as much as it used to be. Back in the days when we first invented it, it was out of control because you didn't have all these different medicines, but different things that would make your veins pop. This was really the first topical and it'll explode, Yeah. And it would just make those veins just irritate the hell of them so much they would just swell up. They had nothing but to do but go up. It's the greatest invention because it's so simplistic how it works, but it's so effective. It keeps you warm backstage after you pump up and it keeps your blood flowing. And that's what you want on stage. It keeps that little redness too you were talking about. A little bit of that redness glow, which is really nice.
And another thing, it cleared out your sinuses.
It did too.
Even if you weren't using it yourself, because there was always, I remember that the whole backstage would smell like hot stuff. You could smell it from like 30 feet before you even got backstage. Like it was a very distinct smell, and it opened up your sinuses. But
it made you cry. It made you cry too sometimes.
I love that smell too, though. That to me, that's another smell I always associate with competing is hot stuff.
And that's a fun thing to say that, Ron, because as I'm winding down my illustrious career, I say that because I'm a grandfather now. And, there comes a time in life where you tend to say, hey, how much can you keep doing this? I'm getting to a point where I've traveled around for so many years. I just want Protan to continue to grow as a legacy. And I love the fact, and I love hearing the fact that, I love the smell, or my tan wanted me to show. It's just such great stories that we get from all the athletes. It's so rewarding for me. It keeps me very, very happy and humble to be in this position. And it's fun. I really enjoy what I do. I love the people that work with me. I love making athletes look their best, and especially when they tell us how they love this. We get so many testimonies and so many nice things. It's just really rewarding. Every day is rewarding. Really is. Thank God.
Your product is so universal. You know how Pampers, a lot of people call all diapers Pampers. A lot of people call all tissues Kleenex.
Yeah.
Why do I have that there? Everybody calls the stage color Protan. He doesn't have his Protan on, or did you get your Protan yet? Whether it is Protan or not.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for the compliment. And I agree. I love that we become synonymous as a brand. The only time it hurts us is when the hotels call you. Are you the owner of Protan? I got 40 sheets that I need to be replaced. I'm like, I didn't do it. Well, they said they used Protan, and so thank God. I mean, it was crazy, but look, we've come a long way in society to where we are today. We're in a very fast-paced, competitive environment. And to be in this industry and to continue to be a leader, working with so many promoters, so many athletes, it's so rewarding as an adult. And I take that seriously. So I want bodybuilders to know that this is in my blood, and I do this because I love what I do. And if you all can do what you love, I wish you the very best, because that's what it's all about for me. I'm going to the Pittsburgh Pro this weekend. I know this will be out after it. Yeah. And I love seeing the athletes. I love looking at our products. I'll critique my people spray tanning and doing the stuff there, but it's just very rewarding to see, people. Not everybody wins, as you know. There's always a winner or loser, but even the people that don't do well, they're just so lovely. And it's been really nice actually for us. And I'm going to continue going on this path and keep bringing in the best teammates we can have, and keep trying to, innovate the products and make sure the athletes look their very best around the world, and promoters get the benefit of what we do. Because one thing that we also do that a lot of people don't know is we have a tremendous social media Protan. I mean, we have 2 full-time marketing people that specialize. So I mean, we have 90,000 athletes on. We're the largest social media site for competitive tanning. I mean, there's other self-tanning companies that are in the masses that are larger, but we have 90,000 people all over the world. And I'm very proud of that. Anybody that we promote, any show to promote, those promoters, we're blowing them up for them. So if you're a promoter around the world, we promote for you. I mean, we're in 100 countries, 40 countries, roughly 40 legally. I say legally because regulatory compliance. Well, products make it to different countries and through different ways. I mean, we sell to Iran, Iraq. I mean, our products are everywhere. Now, sometimes I think the FBI is going to call me sometime.
Oh boy. So wow, I did not. So is it just at Protan? Is that the Instagram?
It's Protan_official.
Protan_official.
Yeah.
Who stole Protan?
Protan was taken by a German paint company before I could get it. There's a brand it's in Germany. I tried, and they must go nuts. They must look at all these pictures, like, who is this? But they're a very large paint company. And I'm like, Protan for Germany, but it's a German painting and roofing company, very large, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't try to get you to buy it for like $1 billion Deutschmarks or something.
I reached out to them and they just never even got back to me. Trust me, I would have been fun. But we have Protan Brazil. Look, we have every one of our structured partners or strategic partners all have their own Instagram. So what we've been able to do with our social media is take our US and then our pros and then distribute that globally through our other media outlets, whether it's Brazil, Japan, China. And we have like 30 affiliates that run independent Instagram. So we're promoting bodybuilding all over the world, Protan. Yeah, we're promoting it a lot for promoters, for all the associations. And, we promote, of course, NPC IFBB Pro League, United States, and all over the world. There's so many other associations too. We just involve with everybody. Whatever we could do to get athletes aware of the sport, we do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to think of another company that's been such an integral part of competitive bodybuilding for these last, it's coming up, over 35 years at this point.
Thank you. Yeah, we are the oldest, aside from a few companies I know, like Universal Nutrition are my friends of mine. They were here a long time ago. Of course, Weider. Yeah. But aside from me, I'm the oldest guy in this industry that's still left.
Yeah.
Everybody's either sold and gotten rich and moved on, or they've gotten out of business. But no, Protan is a genuine legacy brand. I never used that word before, but I'm proud to say that we've established such a great following that for as long as I'm going to be alive, I think we're going to be in this position. And it's very rewarding. I really like it, and I wear my clothing very proud wherever I go. And the things we do to help athletes with jobs and make money is very important for us. So the whole spray tanning plays into that. And it's been able for us to be able to provide more to the athletes after they're done competing is really fun for us too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Stacy, for being such a stalwart. Because like you said, a lot of your peers long ago, they sold off and they're probably sitting on a beach somewhere, wasting time and trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their days. But you're still kicking and still a really important part of this.
Thank you so much.
Industry, because every show we go to, we see your work, we see your product up there on these athletes, making them shine, making them look their best.
Well, thank you. Like I said, the Olympia for us is really is the trophy on the whole thing. We feel that if we could be the Olympia provider of the tans and we gain the trust of the athletes, you can bet your ass that we're going to make everybody look like they just rolled off the showroom with a brand new body, and that's what we do. And we have Rami, we have Brandon, we've got all the top 5 Olympians. Actually, every top 5 athlete at the Olympia was, except for one, was a Protan athlete. So when you come to a show and you're like everybody's using your product and they feel good, I do puff my chest out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I feel good.
If all the top bodybuilders and competitors in the world were using my product, I think I'd take a little pride in that too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel good about it, and I feel good. And thank you for even the opportunity of the interview. And like I said, we talked about Rami, which is the thing, but just all the athletes, amateurs and pros. We have a great time. We have a great time with everybody, and we're going to continue to do that. And we continue to play around with you guys. Muscular development. I mean, I know the history before anybody's around muscular development. I was there in the old days. Before the Blackmans, I mean, when it was owned by York, I mean, I've been around. I was advertising MD. In fact, I wrote an article for MD back in 1988.
Wow.
Yeah. There was an article that it was called Putting on the Glitz in 1988, Protan article. I was on the cover actually. It said Putting on the Glitz, and it was an article I wrote and
My
back in the
goodness.
time. So, I've been around with MD for many years, and it's an honor to be back today and have this interview. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
I love these full circle stories. I really do.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Cool.
That means we're all here to still talk about them. It's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. The fact that, we're all still, anytime I talk to someone who's of a certain age, over 50 or so, that I've known for many years, it's just such a joy that we're still in this industry together because, we've seen a lot of people come and go, a lot of people. So to still be here and still be part of it, it's exciting.
And I agree. And you know what the thing, Ron, and I struggle a little bit with this. I've got to let the younger athletes recognize that hey, we're here for you. I know I'm an old guy, we're an older company, and we're going to educate you, but we have a lot to teach. So kind of listen to us old guys once in a while, you younger athletes. We're going to do right by you. It's not our job is to make sure we continue our legacy. And if you're part of that, so our greatest thing is, like you say, I talk with you, I talk with Sean, we all talk Gaspari. And we have so much knowledge. I have a lot of knowledge on the tanning side. You guys have knowledge on the weightlifting, the accessories, and the athletes. I want the youth to start looking at the history. We have so much great history in this sport, so many fun things. If you really go back and when you're deep into it, you witness it. It's just such a great, entertaining sport with great athletes, and a lot of humor, a lot of fun, a lot of ups and downs. And I think the more people get involved in understanding what the sport's about and deeper, it's fun. It's real fun, actually.
I mean, I've been full-time in this business since 1991, and I couldn't imagine being in any other industry. I just couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
This is.
Well, you've done a great job. You're very good at what you do, and
thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you on this.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody, go to Protan_official on Instagram. Don't go to that other Protan. There's also apparently 30 other national Protan sites on Instagram. Check them all out. I'm sure there's a lot of cool pictures on all those of some spectacular looking bodies with Protan on them. So thank you so much for your time, Stacy. And it's been a pleasure.
I'll do a little plug. ProtanUSA.com is our website. Anything you want to know about the products, there's instructional videos there. There's where to book your tan, what shows we're at, and where our affiliates at. It's a great website with a lot of knowledge. Feel free to check it out as well.
ProtanUSA.com.
Pleasure.
All right. Great.
Ron, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching this edition of the Ronline Report with Stacy Kaufman of Protan. We'll see you next time.